Awesome. So we'll go ahead and start. Hey
Okay.
guys. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm super excited to have a conversation with Miss Calee Pineda today. I'm going to let her introduce herself, but she is a clinical mental health counselor, and she's got some great advice for us today, and she's going to just kind of help us dive a little bit deeper into the world of mental health counseling and be an awesome resource for you guys. So, Calee, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you just take a minute to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and what it is that you do and kind of how you got interested in your field?
Yes, thank you for having me, Jessica. Yes, my name is Calee Pineda. I grew up in the Middle Tennessee area. I grew up in Eagleville, Tennessee. Actually went to school out there, kindergarten through the 12th grade. So I love it out there. I ended up getting my undergraduate degree at UTC in Chattanooga. And there I majored in psychology with a minor in child and family studies. So I feel like when I was there, I was still kind of figuring out what I really wanted to do. And I ended up landing on clinical mental health counseling. So after I finished up there, I immediately moved to Nashville and pursued my master's at Belmont University. And there is where I did the program clinical mental health counseling. So I have always been the listening friend. And I've always found a lot of power and just being able to recognize and feel kind of what my emotions bring and what they mean. And I think that that is a newer concept, right? I think being able to understand your emotions as they come is extremely powerful. Also, a benefit is going to counseling, you're able to sit down with somebody that is unbiased and non-judgmental. And that really stuck out to me too, just because, like I said, I've always been that listening friend. And it led me to this space and wanting to hear more people's stories, wanting to hear more people's backgrounds, and just allowing them to let me in on their lives. I think that's really meaningful and really powerful. And I've just grown a love for being able to aid people in their stories, if I can, and aid them in their personal gained insight. So that is kind of what I'm doing now. And I'm actually working in Murfreesboro at a little private practice called Life Counseling Center. We're right off Church Street on Veterans Parkway. And as I work towards licensure, I'm being supervised there as well. So that is where I'm at.
Awesome. Well, it's so good to know that you're so close to us in Murfreesboro. And I just love that what you had to say about how, it's so nice to have that non-judgmental listening ear to kind of help us process our emotions and learn to have that like emotional intelligence and process our emotions as they come. I think that can be so beneficial. And I've seen that be sometimes a barrier in my patient care. And I know it's something that we can all learn from. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about the clients that you work with specifically. What does that demographic typically look like? And are there any kind of common challenges that a lot of your clients face?
Yeah, right now where I'm at, I'm seeing a wide range of generalized individuals. They're mostly all going through what we call a life transition, right? And that can look a bunch of different ways. Let's say, for example, I can see a few couples that are seeking marital counseling for some things they might be going through. I'll see young adults trying to figure out their path in life and just wanting some gained insight through that. Oftentimes I'll see widowers going through the grieving process, and sitting with them is extremely important and meaningful, and just allowing them to have somebody to lean on in that moment in time. Also working with a lot of teenagers, and that normally resides with going through their goals and passions, and a lot of times talking about their sports, things they're involved in, their involvement, and how to navigate that and how to navigate that well. Truly just a plethora of individuals. Each client is extremely unique, but what I find to be really cool is that everyone has similar goals, right? They all want to learn what those emotions mean and how to tackle them as they come. They all want to reach some collaborative goals. And a lot of people do want to lessen elevated levels of anxiety or depression or whatever that looks like for them. So
That's awesome. I heard you touch on some of your teenage clients and athletes that you work with. That's a huge piece of the client population that I serve also. So it's really cool to connect with other healthcare professionals who are also dealing with and serving patients in those same demographics. Um, what do you see on the front of how mental health can impact a patient's physical health and vice versa? I know that there are certain things that I pick up on when I'm treating a patient where I can tell that maybe they have some mental health struggles that are serving as a barrier to the progress that we're able to make in physical therapy. Do you find that there are those same type of struggles that you see, or maybe vice versa? Maybe you see some physical health aspects that impact your client's mental health as well. So, can you just talk about that a little bit and kind of give me some insight there?
Yeah, I love that question because I truly do believe our mental health and our physical health work in tandem, and they can work very positively with one another, but they can also work very negatively with one another. I see the impact because, let's say, for example, someone's experiencing some poor mental health, elevated levels of anxiety, depression. This can often lead to potential unhealthy behaviors such as lack of exercise, poor diet. It can even impact our body's stress response. Oftentimes, with elevated levels of anxiety, that can also disrupt our sleep patterns. And when we don't get enough adequate sleep, we're not going to be able to do the tasks that we are set out to do during the day. In the same way, our physical health can impact our mental health in a positive way by utilizing that exercise as needed. We're better able to reduce our anxiety and depression. This improves sleep, increases our self-esteem. When exercising, our body releases endorphins, and this aids in improving and stabilizing our anxiety and depression. Just as physical exercise is important, we know that balanced diet is also important. Um, by maintaining a balanced diet, with protein, healthy fats, fruits, veggies, all of those good things, this is going to better allow our brain to have the nutrients it needs to properly function. It also aids in regulating our blood sugar, reducing inflammation, and the coolest thing I think is very cool. It having a balanced diet will aid in the production of neurotransmitters that help with our mood, our energy levels, and our cognitive ability. So, like I said, if these things are working in tandem with one another, we're going to be better suited to get all of our tasks done that we want.
That's awesome. I love all those points that you made. Something that I really stress when I'm either working with new clients or sometimes even working with younger physical therapists is the importance of treating the whole patient and treating your health as a whole and not just looking at certain factors and just highlighting how those several things diet, mental health, exercise and wellness, physical ability, physical health, how those things kind of work in tandem together. I just think that's so important. And I think that sometimes in the healthcare system today, we lose sight of that. And I think that's what's so cool about working in these small private practices where we can really emphasize those importance of just collaborative healthcare and addressing all of the aspects of your health, not as separate entities, but as entities that feed off of each other and drive each other and drive, optimal health and optimal wellness. Because I think that as healthcare providers should be what we're looking for in our patients on a wide spread. And so I love that you touched on that. I think that that is so, so, so important. And, I cannot stress the emphasis of that enough to, again, like my clients and sometimes even, newer physical therapists that I work with. Kind of talking about some of those mental health stressors or even just like life stressors that can, maybe impede our physical health and physical well-being. Can you share some strategies for managing some stress and anxiety, especially for those who might have some chronic pain? I tend to see that my patients with chronic pain or those patients who are recovering from an active injury can be the patients who struggle to manage the stress and manage the anxiety
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
it centers around their chronic pain or their injury or just life in general.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question too. And I tell a lot of my clients, and we work through what's called deep breathing exercises. And I feel like that is sometimes a very therapist thing to bring aboard is the deep breathing, right? But we do it because there is a lot of benefit in it. And there are different ways to utilize this. And I think this is would be especially good for somebody that's recovering from an injury or dealing with chronic pain because it's not going to be elevating that pain, right? What we do with a deep breathing exercise, I highlighted one. And I also have some resources for you if you want to attach or something
I
so they
will
can access
definitely
as
link
well.
those at the end as well, because I think you sent over some awesome resources that
Yeah.
patients are really going to benefit from.
Cool. So the first deep breathing exercise I normally highlight with any client, it's called the 4-7-8 breathing technique. And it's very simple, especially if you need it in a pinch, if you find yourself during your day having that elevated level of anxiety. I oftentimes, even in my personal life, will be like, okay, let me just sit here, let me do my breathing, and it helps. So 4-7-8, what you will do is, if possible, make sure you're sitting up straight. You have your diaphragm all straight. You will inhale through your nose for a count of 4. You will hold that breath for a count of 7 seconds, and then you'll slowly release through your mouth for 8 seconds. And just allowing yourself to do that is very regulating. And I'll tell clients, do this as many times in the day as you need to. It's something that just can be held in your back pocket for those times of need. And I find a lot of clients have a lot of great things to say about that, and I do as well. Another thing we touch on is the concept of progressive muscle relaxation. And I do think this could be beneficial for those that are recovering from injuries, experiencing that chronic pain, because it can be utilized in various different ways, right? So basically, the concept of progressive muscle relaxation is a technique that involves tensing and relaxing different muscle groups to reduce that level of stress and anxiety. So you can do this with various parts, like I said, targeting accessible places. One thing I'll do just to show you would be to start with your hands. So when you're doing this, you'll slowly tense those hands, feeling all of that. You'll slowly stretch out your fingers, noticing the tension in your hands and your forearms, and then you'll slowly relax those muscles, letting that tension go. And this is helpful because it allows a physical release, right? This could be a physical release of pent up stress that we didn't even know we were holding, and you're doing it in a conscious effort, which aids in reducing that stress too. It's almost like you're letting it go once you release, right? And we see a lot of benefit with that as well. And like I said, there are a few resources that I or Jessica will attach that show different parts of the body that you can do that same exercise with.
That's awesome. I think those are some great, quick, accessible recommendations for people to use, like you said, in a pinch. I love the 4-7-8 breathing. I use that a lot with patients, especially, like you said, patients who are in chronic pain or recovering from a really acute injury. I find that that is such a useful technique, and I just wish it was more widely known. So I'll definitely attach the resources on those down below so that everyone can have access to them, because those are some awesome, quick ways to kind of target those stress and anxieties that we have built up throughout the day. Let me ask you, so earlier we were talking a little bit about maybe some common interests and patients that we have working with those young athletes. For me, especially, it's like my teenage females, whether they're dancers, cheerleaders, gymnasts, or, just athletes of any sport. Do you have any advice for these young athletes as they kind of navigate the pressure of performance and, especially in today's society where we start our sports so young, that mental burnout that can kind of quickly accumulate for all of our athletes, and especially those teenagers who are maybe going through lots of different life changes all at the same time while trying to excel in their sport?
Yeah. Yeah, great question as well. And I know so many of us have gone through that in different facets too, right? I think that the performance pressure and mental burnout for these female dancers, gymnasts, cheerleaders, all of them, they can see that in their respective sports and environments, but that can follow us, right? That can follow us into our future careers, into our future relationships, things of that nature. So I think that this can be hard with any respective career. In my experience, finding a balance within it all is helpful with kind of taking off some of that pressure, right? So I would focus on setting attainable and realistic goals at the beginning of each new dance season, football season, gymnastics season, whatever that season looks like for you. I think oftentimes students gymnasts, people in their sports, we want to look at the big goal, right? Their big, long-lasting goal is I want to make it to the top, I want to do this. And that is very stressful. And that can lead to that burnout because it's like, I'm just working for this one thing and I just can't seem to get there and it seems so far away. But if we're able to just pull those layers back and focus on setting that realistic goal at the beginning of each new season, you're going to be able to better understand what you can and cannot accomplish within a given amount of time. So then taking it from, I have this long to go, it takes it to here. And that's much more attainable, right? So that's a huge thing. Also, prioritizing rest and recovery. I think with teenagers, this is very much easier said than done, right? We're go, go, go. We want to just keep going, keep going. Studies show, by emphasizing adequate rest as needed, we're better able to come back to be refreshed and ready. And I think by emphasizing that rest and recovery, you will be better able to come back with a refreshed mind and spirit as well. Um, Another thing that I think is important would be doing activities outside of your chosen sports. Being able to have an outside perspective of what you're doing allows you to look at it with a more realistic expectation. And then the last thing I would think building a very supportive community. Finding relatability within a group of individuals can be life-changing, life-saving, all of those good things. I believe in the power of friendship and support in achieving one's goals. Also, just having someone to lean on that understands what you're going through, having that type of relatability is extremely helpful when you have a lot of pressure and burnout on yourself.
I think those are awesome, awesome, awesome points. So many times I see my young patients who, they have these huge goals and it is about breaking those goals up that sometimes maybe they're too, honed in on their sport and they have, really no balance and control of their life outside of that. And like you said, just that supportive environment is so, so, so important, especially with these teenage athletes. I find it to be just incredibly, incredibly important. Talking about that support outside of, you know, with these athletes, this community that they can build, how can, parents support their children's mental health? Particularly when they're balancing the demands of competitive sports or high stress activities.
Yeah. With parents, I think this goes also for this situation, but it can also be for a lot of different situations. It can be for school, it can be for grades, it can be for a ton of things to have that support for your child. Prioritizing an open line of communication with your children where they can feel supported in bringing things to you and openly discussing their feelings, emotions, and the pressure they may be experiencing, right? We want to feel like they're comfortable coming to you with those issues. Emphasizing the children's effort and personal growth rather than solely focusing on a win. I think a child puts so much pressure on themselves, right? We're our own biggest critics. So they already have that pressure on themselves. But maybe sometimes, focusing on the outside of that, what it looks like that they have grown throughout their season or they have, put in a lot of effort this season. Those are very important as well. Like we touched on before, supporting that balanced lifestyle, support in the coping mechanisms that we touched on, such as the deep breathing, 4-7-8 technique, encouraging your child to do those things if you can also tell they might be elevated in anxiety. Being mindful of your own behavior as a parent is important. You want to avoid projecting your feelings of the situation onto your child. So if you're upset with a coach or a situation, you don't want to put that onto the child because that's going to add more stress and anxiety. And then celebrating their wins, big and small. And we in therapy talk a lot about validating feelings, but what does that mean? So validating feelings is extremely beneficial, especially from a parent to a child. This just means you're actively listening to your child as they come to you with their emotions and without dismissing that concern of theirs, right? Just making sure they feel heard and they feel like their needs are met in that moment.
Awesome, awesome advice. Talking about, stress and anxiety in general, how can we decide, maybe for ourselves or maybe if we've got a client listening, if, the stress and anxiety that they're experiencing is just that normal, typical stressors of everyday life, or if it's something that they should actually seek help for.
Mhm. That is an amazing question. And I feel like it can be taken a lot of different ways. And even my colleagues might have a different idea than the answer I'm going to give. But I think a very good rule of thumb trying to determine something that might require professional help is if that anxiety, that stress, that depression starts to become your norm, right? It starts to prohibit you from being able to complete your daily tasks. It just starts to take over a lot of things, and you notice it happening multiple times in a day, multiple times a week. Like that's something to take note of. And that's when it might be a good idea to look for some professional help. I'm also not under the notion that you have to wait until it gets to be that bad to seek that help, right? So, being able to learn how to process your stress, emotion, learn and utilize those breathing exercises, the muscle relaxation, all of those things when you're in a stable place, that will actually allow you to be more prepared when those higher levels of anxiety come, right? I think you are better able to receive and actually understand something when you're in a place where you're not at an elevated level of stress or anxiety. So I do think, good rule of thumb, go ahead. If it's becoming your norm, prohibiting your daily tasks, that would be something to go ahead and think about. But also, maybe try it when you're not in a huge elevated place. I think both sides of that are very beneficial for sure.
I love that. A lot of times I think in the healthcare setting, patients think about, okay, they go to the doctor for their yearly checkup, they go to the
Mhm.
dentist for their yearly or bi-yearly, or I guess that's not the correct term there. It's every
Yeah,
six
yeah.
months they go for their teeth cleaning, or they go for their eye appointment once a year. But there are all these other aspects of our health that play into the big picture. And I'm always urging patients that have maybe seen me or are graduating for physical therapy, hey, like, don't wait until we have this pain again to get back in to see me. Like, come in, let's do
Yeah.
a yearly checkup. Let's do a, just kind of a prehab type of a treatment session so that we can address issues before they can become and spiral into these big, huge things that take over our life. And it sounds like you're kind of saying the same. When it comes
Mhm.
to our mental health, why not seek a professional's help, before it becomes too much? And, why is this not a more regular thing that we see, widely accepted, as it is going for your yearly physical or your yearly eye appointment? I think that's huge. And I think that's such an important point that you made. I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Um, Talk to me about, are there any certain tools or apps that you recommend, that can kind of help us improve our mental well-being? Maybe we're the patient who, may not have the funds to come to get mental health counseling right now, or maybe our schedules are so busy and we're still in that process of kind of making excuses of why we can't get in. What are some things that we can use on our own to kind of start improving our mental well-being?
Yeah, that's also really good, especially, thinking about your teenage clients and all of those things. We love our phones, we love our apps, all of those things. And there's a ton that can be extremely beneficial. One that I highlight and I tell a lot of people about, it's called the How We Feel app. So again, I'm always emphasizing learning more about what your emotions mean, why they're coming to you in that specific moment, and being able to have an understanding of that, right? So the reason I really like the How We Feel app is that it has you do a check-in on those emotional zones. And I think talking again about your teenage clients and even people well into adulthood, sometimes we have a feeling and it's really hard to explain how we feel into words, right? So this app is extremely beneficial because it will ask you questions that get you to a place of, oh, that is XYZ. And it just allows you to put specific words to what that feeling may look like. And you can set it to have notifications on your phone. So every day at whatever time you put, it'll be like, you want to do a check-in. And it's just a good way of like, I actually set it one time to go off during my lunch hour because it's like, okay, let me do a midday check-in. Let me make sure I'm still ready to keep going with my day, or if I need to address anything, things of that nature. So I think that one's very good, especially if you're not in a place to do therapy. Really good to just learn those types of things as well.
That's awesome. I love that it seems like such a quick and easy app to kind of integrate into your daily life. I'll try to find that for you guys and link it down below as well. Um, Talk to me about finding the right mental health professional. I oftentimes when I'm talking to my patients, I'm emphasizing like, hey, let's make sure that we're a good fit because, there's no harm and foul in saying that like I may not be the perfect physical therapist for every patient. And I'm really passionate about connecting patients with the healthcare provider that, fits best for them. What are the steps that someone needs to take to kind of get into the right mental health professional? I think that that's such an intimate relationship and it can be really important to find the person who, best fits your needs.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I would have the same idea as you of like it may take a few to learn who you really connect with. You're not going to connect with everybody, and that's completely okay, right? Our goal is for you to find somebody that's going to help you get to the place you want. I think one of the easiest way to find the right person or to find a person to begin with is to simply look up and utilize a website called psychologytoday.com. This is a verified website, and I love how it works because it shows you counselors in your area. So you can even type in, I want someone with a background of dance. I want someone with a background of cheerleading, and it will immediately just shoot you your options. And it's really beneficial because you can find a psychiatrist, a psychologist, a therapist, any of those types of people. And that's normally the first step I actually tell people a lot of, utilize that resource, take a look at a few, maybe call a few. I also think you should ask all the questions, right? It's no question is a dumb question. I know for me, I want them to ask me, right? Because if this is your first time doing therapy and you want to know, you want to be well informed, you want to have an understanding of what you're getting yourself into. And I want you to feel comfortable and like you feel understood and all those things. So I would say ask all the questions to hopefully get you to that space for sure.
That's awesome, awesome, awesome advice. That's what I tell my patients as well. Like, ask the questions, be your own advocate. It's so important because not all healthcare is created equal. And maybe the person that your doctor refers you to isn't the right fit for you, or maybe the person that your friend recommended isn't the right fit for you. So, asking all the questions, being your own advocate, I echo everything that you say there when it comes to just all aspects of healthcare. I think that's so, so, so important. Kind of as we wind down here, if someone is starting to consider therapy, what's the first step that they should take in that process?
Yes. So again, I think utilizing psychology today is extremely important. I also think it's important I think a lot of times individuals don't want to prioritize their mental health because they might be intimidated by the process. And so that's why I mentioned earlier, make sure you ask those questions. It's important to know, like you said, the first therapist you meet with might not be your perfect match. I think it's also important to understand, it shouldn't deter you from trying again, right? If the first person you meet with, you don't really click with, just know, every therapist has a different style of how they like to tackle things, and you can try somebody else that might be a better fit for you.
That is awesome, awesome, awesome. Again, I echo all of that. I always tell people just because you've maybe failed traditional physical therapy before, you've had a bad experience with physical therapy before, let's look at like what those bad experiences were composed of and like how can we create this to be the best fit for you and for you to get all of the things that you want and you need out of this.
Yeah.
Um, Calee, I'm so thankful that you've sat here with us today. This has been a super helpful resource. I'm super excited for patients to be able to have this to listen to, especially if, maybe they're thinking about taking the first step into getting some mental health counseling. Just the knowledge that you've provided today is so invaluable. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. My last question that I like to ask all of my guests is, what is your favorite local borough business besides your own? There are so many great local businesses here in the borough, and I'm all about supporting small business. So, what is your favorite place in the borough?
Yes. Well, I just want to say thank you for having me. I really do appreciate it. I do love all the things in the borough. I would say right now, one of my favorite coffee places is Seven Brew. It's a little drive-through coffee. You can't go in, but they just have the best chai tea lattes, and that's my favorite drink. And so I love it there. And then I was thinking one of my new favorite restaurants. It's not technically borough, but it's more in Rockville. It's at Champions Run Golf Course, and it's called Gentry's Grill. And they have the best fried chicken tenders I have ever eaten in my life. So if you love chicken tenders, go get you some there. So they're
That's
so
good to
good.
know. I haven't tried that out yet. That's so close to
Great.
my house. I'm gonna have to give it a try.
Mhm. It's so good.
Well, awesome. Thank you again, Callie, so much for joining us today. I'm so grateful for all of the insight that you provided. And I'm going to link all of the resources that Callie talked about today down below so that you can use those. And Callie, if someone's trying to maybe reach out to get services from you, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Yes. So, like I said in the beginning, I am at a practice called Life Counseling Center. If I were you, I would just look that up and you can find my name, and it has my contact information there. I'm also on psychologytoday.com. So, feel free to look me up there. It has a number and an email you can contact, and I would love all the contacts. So,
Awesome, great. Well, make sure that if you are trying to reach Callie, that you take advantage of looking up her practice or looking her up on Psychology Today.